say. I've been here at Harrah's for 15 years, which is unbelievable to me. 10 shows a week, 47 or 48 weeks a year, and 15, I think that's like 80 shows. And I start every show with the same trick for those 15 years. And I say that I learned that trick from my grandfather, but when I was a little boy. That's a lie. I mean, it's not a lie. Like everything in my show, it's part true and part a lie. The true part is I learned the first trick I ever learned from my grandfather. The lie is the trick I do on the show now to open the show is slightly more complex than the one I learned when I was 5. Slightly. But the one trick that I do, it made some, I mean, I still have a vivid memory of my grandfather, Pax King, when I was 5 years old, picking me up and sitting me on his kitchen counter, and I'm gonna do it for you. It's not that great of a trick, but it is really the first trick I ever learned when I was a little boy. He took out his pocket handkerchief, and this is how long ago it was. He took a kitchen match that he used to light his stove. He took that kitchen match out of a little bowl, and he wrapped it up in his handkerchief, just like I'm wrapping up this kitchen match right now. And he gave it to me to hold. Find somebody here. Just grab that match there. Can you feel it? Oh, it's going to drop out. It might have dropped out. No, it didn't drop out. Just hold that too. Hold that too so it doesn't fall out. Here, I'm going to give this to somebody who understands English. Get that. And, so when I was a little boy, I could feel that match. You can feel the match, correct? And he told me to break that match. So break that match. You can use both hands if you need to. It's very, yeah. And you could feel it break. I could feel it break. You could hear it break. Yes. You wouldn't have heard it break. But and yet, when I opened up that hanky, that match was completely unharmed. So it's thank you. I didn't know to applaud when I was 5 years old, but that's awfully nice of you. So it's not that great of a trick, but I mean, when you're 5 years old, I still remember. Check it out. Plaid is a lifetime commitment. That's an unretouched photo from when I was 5 years. Isn't that unbelievable? So that was my dad's dad. That was my dad's dad. My mom's dad, Elwood, was also interested in magic. And he would do a trick for me, and I would beg him for the secret, and he wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't tell me. He'd say, the secret is in one of those books. And he had like a bookshelf, and there were like 3 or 4 magic books on there, books that taught you how to do simple magic tricks. And he said, the secret is in one of those books. So I would spend the rest of my visit pouring through those books. Yeah, there's a couple of them I still have. That Learn Magic book I still refer to all the time. So it wasn't until I was much later that I realized that, you know, me pouring through these books looking for the secret to that one trick was just kind of really a scam to get me to read. But there were also unintended consequences. I mean, I learned a lot of other tricks looking for that one particular trick. It was really great. So that's my 2 grandfathers, my 2 earliest influences. A few years, actually less than a year after that kitchen match incident, we called it, we moved from the little town of Hopkinsville, Kentucky to the big city of Louisville, Kentucky. And after a few years, I found out that there was a novelty store called Caulfield's Novelties, a big, giant, rambling place that sold costumes and stuff, but there was a counter in the corner, musty old counter that sold magic tricks. And so I would go in there, and it would be like a big treat for me to save up a few bucks and make the trek into downtown Louisville and go and buy a couple of magic tricks. So after a number of visits, I was probably 14 at that point, the guy behind the counter said, you know, there's a club of magicians that meets every month here in town. I didn't know, and he said, yeah, you should come and join us. So my mom, my parents were divorced at the time, my mom decides that she's going to take me to this meeting. They met in the basement of the downtown YWCA. And this says a lot about my mom. She dropped me off at a pretty crappy corner in downtown Louisville. I was like 14 years old. She didn't get out of the car to go in and check this place out. She just dropped me off at the corner and let me go in the basement of the YWCA with a bunch of old men who were interested in magic. What could happen? So I go down to this meeting, and the meeting hasn't started yet. And there's a group of old men huddled in a corner watching somebody perform a trick. And they're pretty packed in there, and I can't really see who's doing the trick, but I can tell by their reactions that they're really impressed with this performance. So I can't really see, but they clap and the trick finishes and they kind of disperse. And I mean, it was like a movie. It was, the crowd parts and the lights come in from heaven and the music, and there's this 14-year-old boy, my age, and that's the person who would impress these magicians. And it was crazy. I was the only other kid there, so I introduced myself. And that's when I met the person who would be the next big influence for me. Here's a picture of him a couple years later when he was 16. Look at that. So yeah, that's Lance Burton when he was 16 years old. And we became buddies. We started doing shows together, traveling around Kentucky and Louisville and doing shows. When we were 18, we got a job doing 3 shows a day, 7 days a week in a little amusement park in Kentucky called Tombstone Junction. And there we are on stage at the Red Garter Saloon. Hamburgers and Cokes at the saloon. But 3 shows a day, 7 days a week, and it was just, it was fantastic. And that's where I kind of watched him develop what I believe is the greatest magic act ever done. That 12-minute act that he used to do with cards and candles and doves, to me is the best magic act that's ever been alive. So anyway, there wasn't really anything to do. Yeah, you can clap. He's not here because he's a hermit. It's true. So my oldest friend in the world, I'm not coming to your house for anything. I'd love to come see you talk, but I know those stories. But really, when we were at Tombstone Junction, there wasn't really much to do except for work on our acts. There was a lodge down at the state park, and we would go down there and try to meet women, but mostly we worked on our shows. We had access to this theater at night, and so I would do a trick for him, and he would give me his ideas and opinions, and then he would do a trick for me, and I'd give him my thoughts and ideas. And I'm pretty sure the fact that he became much more famous than me is just a testament to how much better my coaching was than his. So after after 3 summers of doing those shows, Lance left for California, and we started doing shows on our own. And I was pretty lucky at that time. Comedy clubs started popping up outside of New York, LA, and Chicago. And I kind of got in on the ground floor of that business. And I was pretty lucky because at Tombstone I had developed already a half an hour of material. So the traditional hierarchy in those clubs is opening act, middle act, and that's me on the stage at the Funny Bone in St. Louis, although as far as you know, that's Murray Langston. Really. So I got in on the ground floor of those, and it was it was just an amazing experience being able to sit in the back of those rooms and watch how the comedians structured their acts and worked on their jokes. And even more important for me really was a lot of the times you would stay in a comedy condo, they called it, all 3 acts on the show sharing an apartment for a week. And it was pretty crappy, but it was amazing for me to be able to see how much time these comics put in on their show, tweaking and rewriting, and listening to their set from the night before. And so I learned a lot about really working on my show from them. And it was kind of during those club years that I kind of stumbled on my philosophy. I eventually found myself headlining those clubs, and I did that for 15 years, improv and the punchlines and the funny bones and chuckles or whatever, all over the place. Anyway, it was in these clubs that I really kind of figured out really what I kind of wanted to accomplish with my show. That seems like a lofty goal, but really my my plan, my goal was to sort of make my show into an event. I wanted people to leave my show thinking, we just saw something that no one else in the world will ever see. I want them to leave thinking, oh my God, I was there the time that such and such happened, or, you know, can you believe that that happened while we were watching? It's just whatever. It's just, that's to me what makes live entertainment so compelling. And I sort of, as I grew more confident on stage, I realized that one way to encourage something unusual to happen was to use lots of audience participation. So, and leave plenty of room for those participants to do stuff, and for me to get better at reacting to that stuff. I'm not going to tell you what she was doing, but that's the show at Harrah's, and some volunteer from the audience, and we're kind of reacting to each other doing stuff. So one of the things about that is learning how to pick the right people. For me, that's kind of this. If I have any skill, I've gotten better at that. And you know, people whose body language and their expressions on their face, you know, they're open and look like they're ready for fun. And that's really kind of the why I open my show. If you've been to my show, that's why I open my show the way that I do. I have a rope trick that I've done a version of since I was 16. I just last weekend went and helped my mom move, and I found that. I'm like, oh my God, I took a picture of that with my phone, but it came out pretty good. That was on her, that's on her wall. And don't ask about the helmet. The trick, so it started out pretty simple, but it's gotten more complex over the years as I've kind of developed different techniques for it. But the reason I start with that trick is I've done it so long that I can kind of do it without thinking about it. I mean, you know, for those of you who are musicians, it's very similar, I think. I don't know anything about music, but muscle memory, I think. You know, your body learns to do these things, and so you can almost do them without thinking. And so I use that trick to sort of scope out the audience and watch for reactions. And one night, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Were you there? This was a long time ago. Probably, oh my God, 25 or 6 or 7 years. Anyway, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm doing a show, and I'm doing that rope trick, and I'm not paying attention to what my hands are doing, and I snip off a little piece of my thumb. Scissors are really sharp in my show, and I mean, and the tables are really close, closer than you guys. I mean, and in my brain, it went beep. It made that noise. Little piece flew off and landed on the front table. And so you put your finger over I put my finger over my thumb, and you know how you do when you cut yourself. You push down really hard, and you go, I hope that doesn't bleed. I hope it doesn't bleed. And you look and you go, oh, it's not even, oh shit. And there's blood everywhere. So I'm bleeding, and I still got 45 or 50 minutes of show to do. So I kind of get through the rope trick with my finger over my thumb, and I say to the audience, normally at this point I would invite a woman up to help from the audience. I think under the circumstances it would be better if there were a nurse. Is there a nurse? And the woman, I'm a nurse, so she comes up, and when she sees my thumb, she becomes a nurse. She steps between me and the microphone, and there's a bar in the back of the room, and she says, send up your first aid kit and a big glass of vodka. And I'm not a big hard liquor drinker, but that's not what she wants me to do. She makes me stick my thumb down in this, and it's like, it's like a Tex Avery cartoon. I mean, steam is shooting out of my head. And it's like it instantly shot through crimson, and I say, water to wine, like Jesus. And then I say, and you have been so nice looking after my body part, you get this lovely Bloody Mary. So I finish up the show, and and I go upstairs, and my wife Jennifer, who's here, hi, who I met at a show. She was a volunteer from the audience, not this particular show. She's not a nurse. She's a marriage and family therapist, though, if you need anything. So so Jennifer was up in the hotel room because this club was in a hotel in Charlotte. And I go up to the room and she said, how was the show? And I said, well, pretty good, you know, just cut off part of my thumb. And she said, oh, we have to go to the hospital. And I said, yeah, I know we have to go to the hospital, but first I have to do the second show. So I go back down and I do the second show, almost no blood on my shirt or the rope, the second show. And I get through the show and I'm leaving, and this guy, this kind of grizzly old guy, I pack up my little suitcase and I'm walking out of the club, and this guy's grabbing my sleeve and he's like, Mac King, you were so great. You were so great. Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. Thank you. No, I just want to say you were so great. And I'm trying to be nice because he's complimenting me, but I just want to leave because I know Jennifer's down at the car park, you know, with the car to take me to the hospital. And I said, oh, thank you. And he said, yeah, I saw you before. Oh, that's nice. You saw me before. Yeah, I saw you before, and I was here the first show, and I came back second show, and I was a little disappointed in the second show. Oh, really? What? Why? You know, I wanted to leave, but I wasn't. If you do a show, you go, what do you mean you were disappointed? And so I was disappointed. Yeah, you know, that part where you cut your thumb off, I thought that was so good, and I was a little disappointed that you didn't do that second show. So I've gotten pretty good at picking people. Like if I, like you, I would pick you if you were in the audience. What's your name? Jeannie. You and I, Jeannie, and that piece of rope are going to do one of Houdini's most famous tricks. This is called the Houdini Challenge Naked Rope Escape. I just want you to take off your clothes and tie me up.
With your wife?
No, I'm kidding, of course. You don't have to tie me up. So Sunday afternoon, I'm in this club in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm at the hotel, and this guy, the club owner, Barry, calls me. He says, hey, I'm bringing a date to the show tonight, and I want you to get her up on stage and do the card trick. And Barry, I don't want to get her up. I don't like getting people up that I know. The reaction, so much of the show is the reaction from the audience, and if that's off, kind of throws off the whole show. I don't want to get her up there. And he says, no, it's our first date, and please get her up there. It might do me a little good, if you know what I mean. So I agree he's writing the check. So I get this woman, so I'm there doing the show that night, and I'm on stage, and I'm trying to look at her, but they're sitting right in the front row, but her face is like always in shadow all through the rope trick. I can't really see her, and so I get her up on stage, and as soon as she gets in the light, it's obvious. She's the exact wrong person for this trick. Just the meekest little mouse of a woman. And I think if I do what we just did, if I say to her, take off your clothes and tie me up, that she might cry. She's just so wrong for this. And I felt terrible, but if you're a performer, you know that you're saying things and you're doing things, but there's also another voice in your head that you can hear, and that voice was saying to me, well, I hope she does cry. That'll serve him right. Serve him right for making me get her up here and ruining my show for all these people. So that's what the little devil on the, and so I say to her, take off your clothes and tie me up. And then, boom, she whips off her dress, and he's standing in the front row taking photos of me and this stripper that he has hired. So that was like really one of the greatest nights of my life, and this is really maybe the second. So thank you guys, I appreciate it.